Good evening, everyone. We are here this evening for a work session on our short-term rentals. It was just so the city attorney can clarify any questions council may currently have. And just to touch base after the ordinance is passed. So I know that we had a question about continuing the moratorium, and I'm not sure precisely what else, but let's go ahead and start with that.
Absolutely. So I'll kick it off for us. So on December 12th, as everyone is aware, the voters passed and the mayor signed into effect ordinance number 1469. And so we scheduled this meeting to discuss what this means and to determine the next steps that council wishes to take. And also if there's any questions for Nina or Karen or myself as we go through. A couple of reminders just to point out, we do have the legacy exemptions for the current short-term rentals that are going to last through December 31st, 2024. And we also currently have the moratorium in place until April 1st, 2024. This prohibits any new business licenses from being issued for short-term rentals. So that's something council may wish to consider extending through the end of the year. All right, so you want to, yeah.
So again, we just want to get direction, if any, from council on a few items. So I think the first thing to talk about is the moratorium. Right now, it is in effect until April. And some have asked us about extending it to December 31st, 2024 to be consistent with the initiative that passed. So we just wanted to get your input on that. And then the next question is if we want to amend Title V now or later. So I guess the moratorium is the first thing. If you guys want to get, we just want to get direction from you guys. Not formal direction, but just to talk about it.
I'm sure there's probably consensus to carry the moratorium through. Or not.
I had a question about that. By keeping the moratorium in place, we would prohibit those who would be able to obtain licenses in the zones that they're permitted. Do we want to do that?
Right, that
If
was
we
my,
don't
That was
want
gonna
to do that,
yeah.
then we should suspend the moratorium now.
That was gonna be my question also.
yeah, how do you separate the two?
Yeah, exactly. Now that we have defined law in place, when people make application, you're either qualified or not. So is there any need for the moratorium now, or is there pieces that the city still needs to put in place to receive applications?
I think it depends on your further direction as to, do you want to look into a licensing scheme, changes or updates to Title V, like they could be similar to or different, but under the same mindset as that has been proposed before. You know, if you want to look into that, those are the type of things that, you know, I guess it's kind of get direction on all these issues, right, from you all, because if you do want to do that, then maybe you do want to give time for staff to have to present an ordinance to you for Title V. So I think it all depends on, you know, we're here to get guidance from you all.
So you could basically keep the one till April and we can decide to do Title V, tweak Title V and go from there. And then we wouldn't have to extend it all the way to December.
If you give us direction to
Yeah.
present an ordinance for Title
Right.
V.
Well, what's the implication on anyone who lawfully can now have an STR in their home if they live there or in a commercial residence? What's the implication to them with a moratorium in place? Are they unable to conduct business?
Correct. They are prohibited from getting a new license.
Well, that doesn't seem, so and their license expired on the 31st.
No, those are renewed. And because of the legacy exemption, everyone that currently has a license is able to keep it until December of 24.
Even with the moratorium in place.
Correct. It's only on new licenses.
No new licenses will be issued till after the moratorium.
New, yeah.
In any zone.
Correct.
Right. So
And
the question is, do we want to lift the moratorium now to allow those that are eligible to get licenses?
Right,
So they may.
right. But if we don't have a licensing scheme, then we're just issuing them
We do have a licensing scheme.
well, we don't have a short-term license, right? We don't have a short-term rental license. We're just issuing blanket business
license.
licenses. So if we wanted to do a official short-term rental license, then we could do the moratorium until April and get that done. And then it would be kind of a compromise, right? It would do both.
are you saying because a standard business license is $35 and we
Yeah.
were talking about a short-term rental license being much higher than that? Is that kind of one of them?
That's correct.
Yes.
How long it's gonna take you to put that together?
We've already had started working on it, but we put it on hold because of everything that's happened, but I don't think it would take us longer than the end of March to get that done.
I have a question. First of all, I'd like to clarify from the attorney. Is the ordinance that was, the citizens initiative that was passed by a vote of the people? Correct me if I'm wrong, but the conditions and the provisions in that ordinance are not in effect until the end of the January 1st, 2025. Am I correct in that assumption?
No, I don't think so.
No, it was just the fact that, these like
legacy.
the legacy, yeah.
Okay, so with that in place, so correct me if I'm wrong, couldn't we let this moratorium expire and we could issue a new moratorium that was more specific to residential zones, which would allow for the commercial zones to continue and do as the Citizens Initiative allows for? Would that be an option?
Aaron,
Yes
didn't
or
you
no?
just tell us, that these licenses are good through December of 2024?
The
It's not what I'm
legacy,
talking
the
about.
legacy.
existing licenses. I think what.
I'm
Councilmember
talking about the
Case-
moratorium.
Mhm.
I know, but the purpose of disbanding what we've got in place and putting a different type of moratorium, I'm trying to understand what the purpose of that would be.
Well,
So,
give
well-
anybody that currently has a rental property in a zone that has lost the ability after December 31st, 2024, to move forward in, as we talked about, a lift and shift. They could start looking at acquiring properties in the commercial zones if the moratorium is terminated.
We were just talking about the moratorium it restricts any new license in any zone.
Right.
If we were to issue a different and new moratorium that would allow for the zones that the Citizens Initiative allows for, and the moratorium against residential until the end of the year. I don't know. It just seems to me that we should just extend the moratorium until the Citizens Initiative is effective. And in
It's
the
effective
meantime,
now.
It's effective now.
well, it is, certain provisions are not. There's a legacy that is still out there, correct?
Correct, but it expires at the end of the year. What
Mhm.
I want to be able to accommodate are those that are eligible to have short-term rentals within designated zones.
Mhm.
With the current moratorium, they can
They can't-
apply
They keep.
for those licenses, whether it's a regular business license or a special STR license,
Mhm.
until the moratorium is lifted. Catherine's approach sounds prudent. You know, leave it in place. We have it until April. And give the staff time to draft new amendments to Title V or any other aspect of our code that it applies to. And then we revisit it in April. It does mean that between now and April, no new licenses, no new business licenses will be issued for anyone. You know, legacy is relevant but irrelevant in this discussion. All I'm saying is right now, nobody can get a license.
Mhm.
So do we keep that in place till April or lift it now?
Well, and if staff can do it before April, we lift
Yeah.
it as soon as staff is
We,
done with the title. So I
sorry,
mean, it could be
years ago,
February.
years ago, we drafted recommended
Right,
amendment to
so-
Title
So
V,
it may not even be April.
but I don't know if the good neighbor guidelines are.
Yeah, I just want to ensure that our Title V, it specifically looks at people's addresses when they apply. So we know to, with the address, the charts, and
That's operations.
I would like to say that's common practice, but as we
Yes, it is.
discussed, it is not.
So,
just
so
wanted to
right
say that.
now, what staff is looking for is our guidance on, do you want to lift the moratorium now or later?
Correct. Well, specifically, if you want to extend it, we would draft an ordinance. Or if you're gonna extinguish it before April, we would draft an ordinance. If you're just gonna leave it till April, nothing would be done in our case. So we just kind of need to know what to write.
I mean, I say leave it till April and we work on Title V between now and then.
Aaron says, but by March, you got all the pieces together. aside from whatever we need to, legislate. It seems to me you've got a great idea, but my one question for you, Nina, is,
Robert, I'm just gonna interrupt you real quick.
Oh,
He
go
said
ahead.
March for things he already knows about. If there's still stuff in Title V that needs to get done, then that needs to happen in February. Because you have to have 2 readings
Yeah.
and then get through public hearings, so on and so forth. So can we just make this simple? Keep the moratorium in place because there's other things we're probably still gonna want to work on.
That's-
And he's not gonna have everything done in March without our input. The end.
yeah, I totally agree.
Well,
Okay. Is there
I
any other
disagree,
question
but,
you have,
but
Nina?
that's, appears to be irrelevant.
Well, it sounds like we're not drafting anything regarding moratoriums.
Right.
So then, but,
Nina,
oh, yeah.
Well,
I
I would
have
like
a
to see
question.
what
I have
you
a
all are
question before
working
you-
on, so we
Yeah,
have
just trying to
something
get direction,
to
I'm trying to-
draft off of. I would like to see what you and the city manager are working on, so we do have something to draft off of.
For the,
Meantime, for the Title V.
oh, yeah, that was my next question, but I was
Yeah,
getting.
they're not
Yeah.
doing anything until we give them direction.
Correct.
They're doing nothing.
So,
So it's what.
I drafted it years ago. Yeah.
And
So-
we previously also almost years ago, we're working on the license, so we don't have any of that set
Mhm.
at this point.
But there is the possibility that there are other aspects of the code that will need to be reviewed and
Yes.
it's got to be part of the process. And
Yes.
Right.
it may be that it's going to be a laser focus by our planning department and finance department, or maybe a consultant, but nonetheless, there's a foundational document that our legal counsel's already prepared. So really what you're asking from us tonight is keep the moratorium in place till April. Begin the work on the modifications to Title V and whatever else is out there. And then we go from there.
Correct, and direction that council does wish to work on Title V at
Yes,
this time.
yes. And anything else that's out there.
so part of that discussion that I'm interested in is, do we have adequate legislation in place, except maybe fee structures or something like that? In terms of like the good neighbor policy, really good neighbor policy.
There's nothing. at
No.
this point.
No, I realize that, but good neighbor policy really, at least from what I understood we were doing, was simply having a sheet of these are the things acceptable in Woodland Park. Don't feed the deer, don't shoot the bear. Oh, don't feed the bear too, right? Don't get fed to the bear. Trash cans, parking, all of those things are already codified. So really, isn't that, well, they're all different parts of Woodland Park law. So I thought the whole idea was just a cheat sheet that the short-term rental owner would have and put it in their
But then it would
location.
have
Is
no-
it more complex than that?
Yeah, because it have no teeth. So the ordinance, the Title V would refer to those good neighbor guidelines. In addition, the way that you really enforce short-term rental license owners is to take the license away, but we can't do that without the Title V amendments that we recommend.
Okay, good, okay.
Yeah,
And that's the second part of my question, which was, in our current judicial, if somebody complains about a short-term rental place, they're violating it, they're not registered, whatever else, they get a cease and desist order, goes to the judge.
Mhm.
Does the judge already have a fee schedule of penalties, or is that something we'd have to put into place? Or is that something she already has in place?
there is it's right now it's $300 a offense, but if you want to make it specific for that purpose, we need to amend the fee schedule for that specific thing if you wanted to make it more.
Or per day.
Or
Yeah.
per day or something, yeah.
I have a question for council, though. If for years we have had sufficient rules in place to issue out STR licenses, and we have a new ordinance that allows it in commercial, we have everything in place to allow the people to start applying for the new licenses in the commercial zones, which facilitates, as you were seeking, to get a lift and shift over there. We're slowing them down by saying you can't even start that process until April. And we have everything in place. We've had it for years to allow that to happen.
No, I
The
say you like
staff-
drafted it, it hasn't been passed because it,
We've been issuing,
oh, sorry.
yeah, separate STR license from just the business. We've had a process in place for giving business license, just like we have right now for the current. Why not let the moratorium lapse? That allows anybody that wants to shift over to do that into the commercial. Anybody that tries to apply for a non-recognized zone, they would be denied. So it stops those people from applying to residential zones.
But we can't because we don't have the 2 strikes, you're out. We have no way to
we're
enforce
gonna do
the
that
bad
separate.
behavior.
Right, but if you
It's
allow
not
them to,
separate. It's not separate between commercial and residential. Everybody's gonna have to get that license. And we need the license rules in place before we lift the moratorium. Because if you buy something to detrimental reliance on some kind of behavior that was not a rule prior to you buying it, it could be a problem for us. So all the rules need to get codified before we allow anyone new to continue. Because all the old people are under it and good and operating and they're fine right now. But we're gonna start codifying rules. And so new people could get caught up in the cog of saying, but wait, you didn't have this rule and I didn't know this rule was coming and nobody and other realtors out there in the world weren't checking on this and they don't know our rules and they didn't know you could or you couldn't. And so I think it's really critical for the city, for their sake, to have all the rules codified and in place before we lift the moratorium.
But think about that, Hillary. The rules that we have right now for 154 people, some amount of them might be able to move over now, start making the move.
But those
Regardless
people
of
are
whether
already
they're over,
aware.
yeah, but, or some new people that want to take advantage of the situation and start investing over there and setting up STRs over there since they'll be losing over here. The rules that all STR owners right now are subject to,
Mhm.
they would be subject to them. The current legacy would be subject. There's no difference. It's just when we finally put the new rules in place, those that have gotten a new commercial license, for those of us who like to have the option of STRs over anywhere,
Mhm.
it facilitates that shift over there. And when the Title V stuff goes into effect, it goes into effect for everybody. And there's no detrimental reliance on the new ones.
Rusty?
They have no history that they've had a
Yeah,
detrimental
I
reliance
just,
upon.
I'm also concerned about enforcement by the city right now. I feel like.
There's no
it's-
enforcement anyway.
I know, there isn't, but
Right.
now there's got to be.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I feel like preparation is best.
Yeah.
But that's my opinion.
And I share that. Rusty, let me ask you a question. Have you talked to any business owners who have planned to open a business in Woodland Park? Well, I won't make
No.
it too complicated.
No.
Look,
Any
it ranges,
No.
just as a statistical, oh, by the way, can be anywhere from 3 months to 6 months to 18 months to 2 years before they actually get everything together to operate their business. Some are fuming mad at us the way we do our process, but nevertheless, if I wanted to invest in a commercial zone STR, I would know by April, the city's gonna have pieces in place. So if I'm investing now, I'd spend time fixing it up, doing whatever I was doing, knowing the city will be putting what's necessary in place for me when I'm ready to open that business in the spring.
It doesn't take any time to create an STR business other than going and applying for a license. It's a business license. They don't have to do.
Anyway, I was just saying, it's a part of business planning that you know, it's gonna take 3 months, 4 months before this is in place, then, all systems are go. So I can't really agree with the fact that by us lifting the moratorium now, it lets them say yes to it. The citizens are pretty clear that here's where it's gonna be. It's a train track for our community run on. And if you're ready to pivot and sell your property in residential and buy a commercial, the tea leaves are pretty well laid out.
And the other thing is that currently what we have in place is deemed not legal by our legal department and hence for the moratorium. That's the whole reason for the moratorium is because our Title 18 and Title 5, our Code 18 and Title 5 are not correct for short-term rentals. And that's the reason why we.
Well, you said the word illegal. Nina ruled they're not illegal. Jeff ruled that they're not prohibited. So
Well, that's,
they are.
That's
effective-
not
either way,
correct,
there's-
Mr. nor am I going to give legal advice that can get the city in trouble publicly. But to Councilmember Connor's point, the whole reason why we had the moratorium was to put into place the Title V and Title 18. I would say to be consistent, if you guys still want to do anything with Title V, you should keep the moratorium until you pass that, because that's what we've been justifying the moratorium with all this way, in our whereas clauses and everything.
Yeah.
Remember, there's seven. I
happens.
can be the odd man out.
You can
That's
be the odd
fine.
man out, yeah.
Six can say that you have a consensus. So let's move forward and save
ma-
time.
Mayor, do
Yeah.
we need to take any time now to discuss what what input the attorney needs to see from us now? Or is there, do you guys have enough, does the city have questions that they want council to weigh in on before you put that paperwork together?
Yeah, I think we have enough. Sorry, I think we have enough unless there's something glaring that you remember from the prior, our prior drafts that you really wanted to not have or make sure we look at or don't look at, that kind of thing.
I think we would need to schedule an additional work session if we're
Okay.
going to go into any additional details. Right now, we just wanted to find out as a staff if council does have an appetite to do Title V now, or if they wish to wait till a later time. That's really the biggest piece for us.
I think you all will see that there's things that are in the draft so far that really are no longer viable. And I think you all have the knowledge and skill to be able to identify those things. And then we could have a conversation in another work session, like you said, to iron out a consensus from the council for the rest of those things that are still really applicable moving
Perfect.
forward.
Okay. All right, then we will schedule additional meetings to accomplish that, and we'll work together to get Title V, have the business license for short-term rentals, and put together something for Good Neighbor Guidelines. That's what we'll be working on.
Anything else?
Do we need any community input or it's not the time for that?
I don't think so. No. Yeah, and that would be under the ordinance, not this, so. Is there anything further? Nina, is there anything else you need from us?
I think we have to make sure we're not beginning the moratorium, and we'll begin drafting, we'll provide Title V options and with neighbor guidelines for a future work session.
And Suzanne, on the calendar of meetings from now till when that moratorium expires, is there enough time for you to schedule all of the necessary steps we're going to need to legislate that?
Absolutely. As you know, an ordinance takes 2 meetings. So we have all of February, we have all of March.
Okay, well, I think this work session's over.
Yay.
That was fast.
You mean we get a whole
Thank you.
half an hour break? Wow.
I already did.
Yeah,
Oh.
sign in. And then go do whatever you want until 6:30. We'll adjourn now and we'll be back at 6:30. Thanks.